Hello and welcome to this live video. I'm so glad that you're joining me live or that you're watching later if you're watching this video recorded. I'm going to take a few minutes as we have some people coming in to watch live to introduce myself. My name is Leah Courtney and I'm a homeschool mom of 4, 2 who have already graduated from homeschooling. One is currently in a 4-year college, the other graduated with a 2-year associate's degree, and then I also have 2 who are still homeschooling in high school. I'm also a business owner at As We Walk Along the Road, and I work to provide literature-based resources for homeschool moms as well as encouragement for homeschool moms. So that's a little bit about me, and if you're joining live, I would love for you to ask questions or leave comments here. If I don't answer right away, that's because it's kind of hard sometimes to see the comments as I'm doing the video. So just leave those questions and comments and I will be glad to go back and answer those. I'll be looking for those after the video to see what I missed. And if you're watching recorded, also feel free to leave questions and comments because I'll be checking those over the next few days as well. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you have or reply to any comments that you have. So today we're going to be talking about the part 2 of a talk that I started on Wednesday. If you didn't see Wednesday's live video, make sure after you watch this one that you go back through my feed and find the recorded video from Wednesday, because this is the part 2, the follow-up to that part on Wednesday. The topic that I'm talking about is how and why to build a literature-rich culture in your home and homeschool. And so on Wednesday, I gave 3 reasons why I think it's really important to build this literature-rich culture. And today I'm going to give you 3 practical ways that you can do this, that you can build this literature-rich culture in your own home and homeschool. So just as a little bit of background, and I did this on Wednesday as well, I want to tell you what I mean when I say a literature-rich culture. What I mean by that is surrounding your family, your homeschool with great books. And you can do this in several ways, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. But I'm talking about using great books in your home and homeschool. And I'm talking about using quality books. I will be the first to say that I am not the mom who never let my kids read what Charlotte Mason would have called twaddle. Books that really don't have any value, books that are about TV characters, or books that just aren't written very well but have a high interest level. I definitely did let my kids read those. But the books that I chose specifically to use in our home and homeschool were great books, the ones that Charlotte Mason would call living books. Books that draw the reader in, books that have value as you're discussing them, books that have deep themes. Those are the kind of books that I'm talking about surrounding your family with when I talk about creating a literature-rich environment. So here are 3 practical ways that you can create this literature-rich environment in your home and homeschool. The first seems kind of basic, but it's something that I have realized not everybody does, and that is to just have lots of great books in your environment. Now, the reason that this seems basic to me is because I'm not mom who has about 6 bookshelves and they're all full, and I would really like to have more, but I've kind of run out of room in my house to put them. So we have tons of books. I hate throwing books away. Well, I never throw books away. I hate giving books away. And I hate parting with books that have been ones that we have read as a family and really enjoyed. So because of that, I usually don't get rid of many books. I usually keep them and they get added to all of our stacks. Combine that with the fact that I myself love to read and have always been an avid reader. I will sometimes go back and reread books, so I love to keep books that I enjoyed as well. So I have a whole shelf of books that I've read over the years and loved, but I realized that not everybody has the space to have that many shelves. Not everybody wants to take up so much room in your home with that many shelves. But even if it is just maybe by having some small shelves like these that I have in the background, or having some baskets around your house, it's very important to have these great books in your environment, because if they're hard to get to, it's going to be much less likely that you or your kids start reading them. If you have to go to the library for every single book that you're going to read, that makes it difficult, especially right now with the rules in place for the pandemic. Because it's not always easy to get out to the library. Libraries aren't all open with regular hours, and so it's just difficult to get out to the library. So having your own collection of great books is really important. And like I said, it doesn't matter so much if it's a huge collection. What matters is that you are choosing really good books and you're having them there available in your environment so that your kids can easily get to them. One suggestion that I have for this, if you do have lots of books like I do, I know that sometimes with all the books I have on the shelf, the kids are reluctant to go just hunt for something to read because they don't really know what they're looking for. And so what I did when my kids were younger is I always kept a book basket. And in that basket, I would put a collection of books, fiction and nonfiction, that had to do with what we were doing in our homeschool or that were something I thought would be of high interest to the kids. But this way, I could sort of rotate through our book collection and give the kids the opportunity to see the books that we had available, because there are so many that often some got overlooked and the kids never even knew that we had those books. This book basket helped to bring to their attention books that I thought that they would be interested in, or books that had to do with the material we were studying. So that's the first suggestion. The second suggestion that I have for creating this literature-rich environment is one that is near and dear to my heart, and that is to read aloud and to read aloud often. Parents often ask me, well, when my kids are reading independently, I don't still need to read aloud, right? Because they can read for themselves. This is not true. You need to read aloud forever, as long as you can. I read aloud to my kids. This is the first year in a long, probably forever, that I haven't been reading a book aloud to at least a couple of them. But this year, my two high schoolers are both taking some outside classes and some online classes, and so it's a lot harder to fit it into our schedule to have regular read aloud times. But up until last year, I always had a book going for at least a couple of the kids at a time. And when my kids were younger, I read aloud to all four of them until my oldest two were upper high school age. And what finally happened is when my son got a job and was working regularly, and then my older daughter, who was in high school, was taking outside classes, it became harder to read to the whole group of them. And then I would read just to my younger girls up until last year. So definitely into the high school years, reading aloud is so important no matter how old your kids are, because reading aloud helps you to share that book together, to be able to talk about it, to be able to discuss the themes and concepts that you find in it. And reading aloud just has so many critical benefits no matter the age of your kids. It is something that I suggest you start when your children are born, or before I had read all of these different studies about reading to your unborn children, I actually did that. I'm that mom who did that because I've always loved to read. So I recommend reading aloud to your kids from birth all the way through high school as long as you possibly can, with time permitting. Reading aloud has so many benefits. So, reading aloud is definitely my second recommendation for creating this literature rich environment in your home and homeschool. And the last suggestion that I would give you would be to teach using literature based curriculum in your homeschool. So, by literature based curriculum, I mean that great books make up the core of what you're learning, not just textbooks and workbooks. When you're using real books, fiction and nonfiction, but when you're using real books, learning can really come alive for you and for your kids. Using a textbook can often just be sort of dry and not very interesting, but there are many books, even nonfiction books, that are so well written and that you can use as the basis of your curriculum. And these living books will give you more opportunities for discussion. They will give you time to discuss things that are happening in the books with your kids and to think critically about it instead of just reading through a chapter in a textbook. So using a literature-based homeschool curriculum is really important when you're looking to develop this literature-rich home and homeschool. Another great way to use literature-based curriculum is to use literature unit studies as the core of your homeschooling. And this is when you have a book or a group of books and all of your learning for all different subjects comes from the information in those books. So for example, if I were giving you a literature unit study for the book Charlotte's Web, we would be reading that book, but we would also be studying maybe spiders or pigs or life on a farm. And all of those different topics could cover history and social studies topics, science topics. Sometimes we can even work math in, but a literature unit study means that all of your learning is centered around a great book. Now, if you love learning with literature unit studies, you're going to want to stay tuned next week because I have something special that I'm going to tell you about. And if you love using literature unit studies in your homeschool, you're not going to want to miss this. But let me recap today 3 practical ways that you can create this literature-rich home and homeschool. Make sure you have lots of great books in your home. Read aloud and read aloud often. And then use literature as the basis for your homeschooling. Make sure you tune in next week to find out about the resource that I have for you that's going to be awesome if you love teaching with great unit studies. Thanks for joining me today.